Stab.
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 That's me on your red.
Stab.
We are giving stabs, not taking them, though.
Yes.
We
dish
when
them out.
one wishes to give stabs, one must be prepared to receive them as well.
Fair.
Yep.
You don't have to just sit there and take it, but like you expect someone to stab back, you know.
Right. I don't know. Typically, it seems to me like if you're planning to stab someone, try to stab someone who's not about to stab back.
For the record, none of us have any plans of stabbing anyone.
Not currently.
That you need to know about.
Yeah. Speaking of stabbing things, I suppose by the time this episode comes out, Thanksgiving will have come and gone.
You'll be stabbing the turkeys with your fork and
Your Nerf and your spoons and your chipsticks. If you use those to eat your Thanksgiving dinner.
I mean, I suppose there are some people who would eat Thanksgiving dinner with chopsticks, but yeah, not this guy. But yeah, no. So I guess they'd be belated.
The weird thing about the release schedule that we're doing now is like, it feels very disconnected from current events to me.
Yeah.
Which is just weird. And like, maybe this is why people never refer to the times when they do the podcast.
Well, we like to break the rules here.
We could get away with that when we actually released episodes within the same week that we recorded them.
Yeah.
That made a lot more sense then.
Well, I just straight up forgot for like 2 or 3 instances, so that's the only real reason why we have this offset schedule. So at some point, it's going to reset with us.
With a bunch of holidays going on, we'll probably catch up, have an opportunity to upload
Yeah.
and not record. But
This one will come out after Thanksgiving, for sure.
for sure.
So, will it be Advent yet? I don't know. But that's kind of where we're at. How we doing? We haven't recorded in a bit.
Yeah, it's been
Didn't we?
A couple weeks.
we skipped last
we
week.
skipped last week in order to watch
This thing
the
for
finale
today.
of the thing we're talking about tonight.
Yes.
So, yeah.
What has happened?
What has happened?
I don't know.
You don't know what has happened.
Well, I've just been kind of working and doing a lot of hunting. Oh yeah, I went deer hunting. That was fun. I didn't shoot a deer, but my uncle shot a deer and I tagged it. An extra one, I should say, and I tagged it. Took it home, got the meat. That was nice.
Yes, quite.
Yeah, it's November. Things are kind of starting the wind down for the year, which is nice now having a job where that's a thing, where things wind down towards the end of the year instead of get absolute absolutely crazy.
Yes.
At the end of the year, as my previous job would have. Let's see. I think we had done the Newman dedication mass prior to the last time we recorded.
I think so. I
That
don't know
was
if we
cool.
talked about it, but
Not
it
really.
was cool.
It was very cool.
I didn't go to that. I attended a birthday party from within my Bible study.
Yeah.
Actually, it was 2 people who had birthdays close enough together that we did a joint
It's kind
type
of
of
a
thing.
joint
Yeah, we didn't do
session
joints
of
though.
Congress.
We did.
Congress.
Missed opportunities.
I don't think so.
Could have gone over to Moorhead.
You could have gone to Moorhead.
It could have, but we chose to play a one-shot campaign of Monster of the Week. So there we go. It was fun. We got in. We went to a tiny town in the middle of nowhere and figured out the mystery of a chair that was messing up local politics.
You could have gone to a town in the middle of nowhere and ripped a fat dart.
You know what? Missed opportunities. Missed opportunities.
We don't advocate the smoking of marijuana on this channel.
We only
We reserve the
reference
right
it
to
for
joke about
comedic
it.
purposes.
Yeah, we reserve the
We
right to
advocate
make
joking
jokes.
about smoking weed, but not actually smoking weed.
Yes.
We advocate the next episode memes, but not participating in the activities described therein.
Yeah.
Right. I also made potatoes for a Friendsgiving this week. That was fun. With the same Bible study group.
Fun.
Good sturf.
My Bible study just sort of fizzled out. Like when you have enough married guys with young children in one group, people just stop showing up to things. So, I mean, there's like a couple of us that met last time. It was supposed to be every other week, but we've been like maybe once a month. And I'm not really sure what to do about that, to be honest. Whether to try to keep it rolling or just like let things go or what. It's kind of in an interesting stage. I mean, it was great to hang out with those guys, but it's just sort of people get busy and it fizzled out. But then you sort of need that camaraderie and community. But like, who am I, one of the few remaining single guys in the group to like tell the other guys they need to spend time away from their families for an evening every other week?
I mean, I have a Bible study that meets once a week, Monday at 7:30, that has some lovely single ladies in it. So, but also last week when you guys came over when Riley came over to watch finale, I went to bed. And I was in my room, and I hear myself on the TV out here. It's like, you're watching me rant about Star Wars.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Yep.
Yeesh.
We waited till Nathan went to bed before we watched the video that he made.
I think you were too apologetic.
Oh, yeah?
I think you needed to stand your ground and lean into your take more. Be more polemic.
I could have framed it that way.
You led with the caveat. You could have just left it there.
I could have, but I thought it would be more funny to be self-deprecating of my take, I guess.
Sure.
To frame myself. Also, it was total deflection in case somebody saw it as blind hate. And honestly, I got more...
See, the thing you've neglected to consider is that the more rage you induce, the more clicks you get.
This is how you success on the internet.
This is how you internet clicks.
True. I guess. But also, I had fun. I think I got my
Nathan,
point
be
across.
nicer to yourself. This is an intervention. You need to have a more positive self-talk.
More positive self-talk so I can more negatively talk about the
Practice being
the stupid
kind.
Star Wars Disney Plus intro that
Practice
I
being
don't
kind.
like.
Practice being kind to Nathan. How does Nathan feel today when Nathan says things about himself?
I found it quite entertaining.
Yes, it was fun. I mean, granted, like having... Basically, from the first time we sat down to watch The Mandalorian, I got the full spiel on why this was
sat down
dumb.
to The Mandalorian, the intro started playing, and I'm like, ew.
And I was just like, yeah, whatever. And Nathan's like, no, ew. I'm like, oh, okay.
No,
We've hit a nerve here.
ew. And I'm like, hope this is just a Mandalorian thing. It was not.
Narrator. It wasn't.
If you want to know how Nathan truly feels, you can go ahead and
Find the video. It's
Find the
somewhere.
video.
It's out there.
It's out there someplace. If you're listening to this, you know me and can contact me directly to find it.
Yep.
Or you
More than
can
likely.
email Palladium Papers.
At
We'll send you a link.
Send you a link to the
Yeah.
video.
We'll email you your personalized link that is the same as everyone else's. But we sent it to you specifically because you asked nicely. Ideally. If you ask unkindly, we'll probably send it to you anyway to make you go away. Because as we all know, the most effective way to get rid of people is responding to their emails.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, that was sort of the other thing I wasn't too miffed about not recording last week is because Riley's had a cold, I had a cold. It's just been that time of year. Everybody be coughing and hacking, not kung fu fighting. But that's just how it goes. As long as I feel 100% by the time Thanksgiving will have happened as you're listening to this, I won't be too put out about it. But yeah, given that I started my job sort of later in the year, I only qualified for so much PTO. However, that PTO is the perfect amount of PTO for me to be able to take the entirety of Christmas week off. So that is nice. So that's all squared away. So I'm looking forward to that sort of vacation at the end of the year. It's something I've done for the last few years, just kind of take time off around Christmas. It seems like a natural time to do that, just kind of hang out and do whatever. Granted, now that Riley's not only here for Christmas, in fact, do you have Christmas travel plans this year? Or?
Not this year, as of now.
Because, what was it, 2 years ago you went to Wisconsin for part of it? Or is that Thanksgiving?
That was Thanksgiving.
Ah.
Yeah, I was there for the whole break 2 years ago. I didn't come home that Thanksgiving.
Gotcha. Oh, yeah, I suppose what will we have done for Thanksgiving by the time this comes out?
We'll talk about what we did over Thanksgiving when we record next time over Thanksgiving.
The way you phrased that made it sound like you were thinking of a particular thing.
What will we have done? Oh, yeah, or at least my intonation. I mean, I don't know. I was just making conversation. The usual hanging out with family Thanksgiving stuff, probably.
Yeah,
My mom's in Winona, so
Oh.
doing U.S. Corps of Engineers stuff down there over Thanksgiving. So she might not be back. And she was supposed to be down there for a month, but is perhaps coming back sooner than anticipated because they're like, we don't actually have work for you. Why are you here?
Gotcha. So that's up in the air then.
Yeah, so we may or may not be doing Thanksgiving on Thanksgiving.
Gotcha. I suppose is like Duncan will still be around. I suppose
He will, but the
I
two
know
of
Bryant
us by
is-
ourselves don't have quite enough Thanksgiving acumen to
That's true.
pull off the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah.
I could do
know
a few things, but I'm no expert in many of the dishes.
The Monday following the Thanksgiving, there will be the diocese young adult group Friendsgiving. I'm planning on going to.
Yeah.
That'll be fun. Oh yeah, we got the Bishop Folder for Theology on tap next week. There's been a decent amount of activity, I suppose, with the Catholic young adults group in the diocese.
It's been picking up more recently this fall.
I was supposed to be in a meeting going on 3 times now with the guy at the diocese who runs this stuff, but something happens every single time we schedule a meeting to talk about young adult stuff. So will it happen eventually? I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. But the goal to be, bringing more of this sort of post-college young adult Catholic community stuff to the area. Try to contribute however I may to that effort. But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, we will indeed.
Yeah,
my Thanksgiving week involves, I've got, so my sister and her husband and my 2 nieces that live in Chicago, they do a thing where they spend Thanksgiving up here with us and then do Christmas with his folks in Chicago. So we're going to do our sibling gift exchange over Thanksgiving itself, and that'll be fun. So I'll have the whole gang will be there.
Yeah.
Ideally, God willing.
Yeah. The whole gang will be together for I don't think we've all gotten together since our family trip in August, to my memory. I mean, it might have happened once, I suppose, but I think there were still a couple of people who weren't there for that. So I suppose my sister-in-law is working, but yeah, it'll be a good gathering of the crew. I'm looking forward to it. That's always fun. Looking to be rather pleasant as this region's weather goes for Thanksgiving, all things considered.
Quite. It did look like it would, it snowed a little bit earlier, and I was like, it's a little too early for it. But now it's like, it's getting a little late for snow here, friend.
Yeah. So it goes. I mean, you typically up here we get late October, there'll be like a snow or two that don't really stick around.
Just because the ground hasn't cooled off yet,
Yeah. So we'll see how
wait
this
for
winter
the ground to
shakes
freeze up for the snow to stay.
Yeah. We'll see how it shakes out. We'll see what Old Man Winter's got up his sleeve there. Yeah. That was the last episode. Fargo was the last episode.
Was it the last episode that we did?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It hasn't been uploaded yet as of this recording.
Okay.
Because time be weird like that.
Time do be like that.
Yeah. Gosh. Anything else timely while we're talking about I suppose when this comes out, people will be prepping for Advent, which is kind of scary. Not like in a good way, but like, holy cow, this year. I thought last year was fast. This year, also among the speedy ones.
And we're going to have a unusually long Advent because Christmas is Sunday, Monday. Christmas Eve, No,
No,
it's
we're
gonna
not,
be
'cause-
unusually short.
Unusually short fourth week of Advent. Yes.
Right, because
the fourth week of Advent will be about 24
Right,
hours.
because because Christmas Eve is that Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Right, I had that mixed up. Where I'm like, oh no. I remembered it fell on the weekend, and I don't actually get days off for Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
I just
Yeah, because
like-
the shipping industry.
well, I get Christmas Day off usually, right? But I also just usually get Sundays and Mondays off.
Yeah, so you don't get
I don't
any additional.
get Christmas off. I get it off, but it's not like extra days. And it's
You're
like,
just not working that time.
right,
anyway.
exactly.
Yeah.
Which is like it's funny when it's like, oh, today is national holiday. It should be a day off, but it's also a weekend, which makes planning things like nice, right? Because people have their weekends, but also you don't get paid for the extra day.
It is
you
the
don't come into work.
It is the one feast that the church, that and New Year's, that the church won't commute the obligation to that Sunday.
Yeah.
Because Christmas be liturgically unique like that. You got Christmas Mass, the vigil. You got the Christmas Mass during the night. You got Christmas morning Mass. It's kind of like Easter, I suppose, is a little bit like that too.
Well, Easter is always a Sunday, though.
Right. But in this case, I mean, in terms of like
the mass at night, mass in the day.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. Like you go to Sunday Mass and then like midnight Mass later if you do that, or Christmas Eve or what have you. It'll be quite.
If you go to an evening mass and then go straight into the midnight mass.
Yeah, you could go do your Sunday Mass in the morning, in the evening do your vigil Mass, and you're all good to go.
Boom. 2 for 1.
Yeah,
I don't know how liturgically sound that is.
I mean it's
That's perfectly illicit.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
within them's the rules.
As long as there's a parish willing to do that.
Well, I mean, I feel like most parishes, yeah, you would have your
They're
typical
just going to
Sunday.
keep their normal Sunday schedule.
Yep.
Yeah.
Add a Christmas Eve, your midnight mass kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And go through the whole painful rigmarole of reminding people that you need to go to Mass today and tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be a whole thing.
Hmm. Well, speaking of the whole painful rigmarole,
Yeah, this is going to be a doozy, ladies and gentlemen. We're the Palladium Papists. I'm James.
I am Nathan.
and I'm Riley.
So we're doing a super serial this week on Attack on Titan.
One day, 3 lads from North Dakota were bitten by a radioactive television, and with their powers combined, they are Super Serial!
Going?
So for the sake of our slash the-
Super Serial?
Yes.
We're getting super serious about some serialized content today.
So for the sake of the audience and our own sanity, we decided to write down the synopsis notes this time, and it's still
And
quite a bit of
it's-
information.
It's still a doozy.
Because it's
An
it's
entire decade-long TV show spread out. Well,
over. It took a decade to come out, but it's 4 question mark seasons.
4.67,
yeah, something like that.
foreign
it's-
change.
The last season, in its various stages and parts, got a little bit much.
Yeah.
But-
Gets a bit much is sort of the theme here. So here we go. This is Eren Yeager and Mikasa Ackerman live with Eren's parents in a giant walled city on the island of Parody with their buddy Armin, or whatever his Arlert. So they live in a city that has giant walls around it to keep these giants out of it, called Titans, who are big old people that like to eat the smaller people. So 2 big Titans that look like they can control what they're doing break the unbreakable wall, and a bunch of Titans get in,
And
kill
a bunch of people get
people.
eaten.
A bunch of people get eaten, including Eren's parents.
Well, mom.
Mom. Well,
His dad's away on doing something.
They
He's
both
on
get eaten.
business.
He's away on business.
Yeah.
Then he goes mysteriously missing.
Eren, Mikasa, and Armin survive, get to an inner circle of the city walls, and join the. Eventually, after a few years, they join the Titan killing army. So
Because they're hardcore, they join the big ol' the scout regiment.
Yeah,
which
they wanna
nobody
join-
wants to do because
They're the ones that get to kill Titans, and Aaron's
they go
Aaron's
out-
weirdly into that.
Well, yeah, he's weirdly into killing Titans, and they get to go beyond the walls, being scouts.
they
and
get
all.
freedom.
They get freedom, and Aaron's into that. So they get they join up with your typical shonen cast, and in their first battle, Eren valiantly gets eaten trying to save Armin. But plot twist, he turns into a Titan and is able to sort of control his actions, and he fights the other Titans, and the people aren't quite sure about that until he transforms back into a human, and then this guy named Levi, who is one of the scouts, kicks him in the face a bunch of times. He's like, yeah, we'll use him. I'll kill him if we have to. They do eventually, but we'll get to that. So they use Eren's what's called the Attack Titan to get a big old rock and plug the hole that the Titans are coming through, and they succeed. Although
they clean house and resecure the city.
Yep. But then a Lady Titan shows up. They capture. They do a lot of fighting. People die, and they capture her eventually. And it turns out that she is a Titan changer, who's their comrade, friend, their comrade Annie, that they did training with. Mm-hmm. So she she basically encases herself in a crystal to keep from and goes into stasis more or less for almost the entirety of the rest of the show. They also find out that there's Titans inside the walls at this juncture because they busted a hole.
Not
fighting.
Inside the walls, as
the
in
walls
they're roaming around free in the space.
But they are the walls.
They are giant Titans.
Like I'm in your walls.
Mm-hmm. You're in her DMs. I'm in your walls. Ready to destroy the world. We're not the same.
Anyway, they
what the heck is up with that? So, there's more Titan adventures. Monkey shows up.
Yep, giant monkey.
Monkey
is a
Titan.
big Titan.
He plays baseball with giant rocks and kills lots of people with giant
horses.
rocks and horses. So it turns out that the big Titan, the Colossal Titan, and the Armored Titan are their buddies, or so they thought. Reiner and Bertolt
were in the scout regiment with them.
Yep. So it turns out that they, and then there's like this sort of this smaller Titan,
A gremlin bitey Titan who's
not really that important.
Not really that important.
She dies pretty quickly. Well, she gets, I suppose, captured and brought back.
She gets captured, brought back,
and eaten by another person.
Right.
So it turns out that the Bertolt, Annie, Reiner, and this other person who got killed by Ymir's
gremlin bitey Titan.
Yeah, who got killed by Ymir's Titan right off the bat, were sent from this other place called Marley, which is like in the outside world. And so rewinding way,
which hitherto we thought there was no outside world.
Yeah, they thought they were the last of
But then they go in Eren's dad's secret bunker basement and read his notes where it turns out, his dad's from the outside world too. Uh-oh.
Yep. So the Eldians, as they're called, are descended from this gal named Ymir, who was enslaved by a king and found this weird creature in the woods and turned into the first founding Titan. And she died eventually, but her kids ate her body and gained her abilities. And so that's where the Titan wielders came from. But all of her descendants, turns out, if you get some spinal fluid from the founding Titan, can be turned into big old Titans. So all those Titans that are terrorizing Eren and his people in the walls there
are their own people.
Are their own people who are basically living in a ghetto in the land of Marley because they're second-class citizens because the Marleyans rose up
with their armbands with stars on them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Subtle. And Eren's dad was one of these people, and he was sort of sent over to Paradis to sort of learn about them, but he fell in love with the culture and married a woman and after his wife. And turns out Monkey is Eren's half-brother.
Who is also an heir to the founding Titan
and all that stuff.
If he gets the founding Titan, he can control it. But Eren's dad went and attacked the
royal family
and ate the founding Titan, and so now he's got the founding Titan and the attack Titan. But then he made Eren eat him, turning Eren into the attack Titan that also has founding Titan. It's a thing.
It's a whole big thing. So it turns out way back when the royal family or whatever fled to Paradis and made a big old wall out of these giant Titans and was like, okay, if you guys mess with us in the outside world ever again, I'm going to wake up this wall and we're going to end the world because there's enough Titans in the walls to do that.
Just step on everybody.
Yeah, because the Colossal Titan is one of the big old Titans that blew a hole in the wall. This wall is made out of colossal titans, basically. So it's a big old threat. Where are we? Oh yeah. So there's a big old fight again. Monkey and Reiner and Bertolt, they all come back because they are supposed to try to capture Eren and get the founding titan. And
There's
bring him
also
back
a
with
new
them.
one who's the cart titan. And
Oh
she
yeah,
can
the
carry
titan
stuff
wielders
around.
are basically subservient to the Marleyan military and are forced to go on missions for them.
Human weapons. No big deal.
Yeah. So that's why they had originally blew a hole in the wall, because they wanted to get the founding titan, and they eventually discovered Eren has him, so they're trying to capture him. So there's a big old fight. Bertolt gets killed, and Armin gets turned into the colossal titan. They fight him off. Monkey and the other people retreat, and they eventually, like the scouts and all those people on the island, kill the rest of the dumb titans and gain control of the island and reach the ocean. Eren's like, okay, cool.
I have achieved freedom.
Yeah, but it's not enough. I have to become death, destroyer of worlds. So he kind of goes AWOL and goes across the ocean, sort of infiltrates Marley, kills a bunch of people, eats Titan wielder over there.
Who's the
Warhammer.
The Warhammer Titan.
The 40K
The 40K Titan, yes.
Yeah. She eats a space marine over there. And
Then
Mikasa, Levi, Armin, all that
all the
crew
whole
show up on
crew.
airships with upgraded gear because they learned stuff from the Marleyans or whatever. And they basically Armin nukes the city by turning into the Titan because it releases a lot of energy. But he nukes the harbor and destroys like the Marley military or navy, so they can't like attack them right away. But they basically force Eren to come back with them.
You've denied my freedom.
Yeah. Turns out he's acting all weird and stuff, so he starts a coup, takes over the government, and long story short, oh yeah.
Too late.
Yeah, long story short,
Long
Eren
story long.
there's a big old kerfuffle, and these Titan wielders come back trying to capture him again. But this time he manages to tap into the
founding Titan.
he managed to tap into the force or whatever and become the founding Titan. Wakes up the Titans in the walls and starts the rumbling. Proceeds to wipe out 80% of humanity. And so what's left of the scout group, Mikasa, Armin, Levi, some of their buddies, they hatch a plot with the Titan wielders who join their side now because, it's the apocalypse or whatever. And they team up to take down Eren.
Which they eventually do.
And
Mikasa cries and cuts his head off.
Yeah, Mikasa cries and chops his head off, woo-woo. And humanity lives to kill each other another day.
Is that going to be an episode title? Because the cries chops his head off. Ooh.
That'll be for sure in the description. Oh yeah, and a monkey gets killed by Levi at some point in there.
Because he is sort of pivotal to controlling the Titan.
Yeah.
Because he's a member of the royal family or has the blood.
So Monkey, it turns out his plan was to take over the founding Titan and sterilize all the Eldians so they would eventually die out because he believed that's what would cause peace in the world. Eren's like, nah, how about we just kill everyone else? How's that? So, but now Eren, when he dies, it turns out he had this big old plan to make his friends into heroes so the world would make peace with... Parody and freaking...
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
That didn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work because...
It sort of works temporarily. But he also removes the Parody people's ability to turn into Titans, I guess.
So they're less demon people, but still hated because racism is still a thing in the world because human beings still exist.
Yeah. So that is very much in a nutshell.
And the ending sequence just kind of shows a small window over the credits of all of the various tragic wars that they get into over the years.
Yep.
It's like a time lapse.
Eventually, it just ends with nukes and a post-apocalypse.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
As if the Titans themselves weren't already a thinly veiled allegory for nukes.
There's just straight up nukes in the epilogue. So that's it's a whole thing. It was a long running show, lots of interweaving plot points and slow burning arcs and a whole cultural phenomenon, and now it's done.
And now it's done.
Now it's done.
Where do we start?
Where indeed? I think we kind of start with the overall themes and then kind of tie parts of the narrative.
This show is a Nietzschean fever dream. Everybody dies.
Is it?
Well,
Is it? Not really.
sure.
It's more of the Nietzsche. People paint Nietzsche as a nihilist. He's not. He doesn't like nihilism. He thinks it's a bad thing. It's definitely nihilist.
Yeah.
And it's definitely hopeless. And
Turns out every time you're happy, you have fleeting moments of happiness between death and blood and gore and hopelessness.
yeah,
Every time things look good, well, you know a lot of people, including some people you like, are going to die.
and
That's
it's kind
over
of
and over again in this.
as I've been reflecting on it, preparing for this episode, like I was a bit dissatisfied with the way they kind of threw away a perfectly good story to make a point.
Yeah.
And I realized that throwing away the story was part of the point.
Yeah.
Like,
Because it was very
You
compelling.
had something compelling and beautiful here, and it was destroyed by
Humanity-
hatred and war needlessly.
Humanity struggling for survival, because there's something appealing about the initial pitch of the show, right? You have
It's
like
a
this
David
giant
and Goliath
city,
thing, right?
this giant city where there are the last remnants of humanity are fighting to survive against overwhelming odds, right? And then,
and they make it seems hopeless, but then there's headway. Eren's a Titan. They can fight fire with fire, so to speak. And the enemy ups the ante, but there's still a struggle, and they've got powerful warriors. You know, the Levi is really, really good.
And Mikasa's a prodigy of like killing people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like,
And,
there's
that's
back
related.
and forth. There's
You have your
kind of an
inspiring
arms-
leader, what's his face?
Erwin.
Erwin, yeah, Commander Erwin and all that stuff.
And so, like, there's generally an upward trend. Like, it seems like they can do it. It seems like they can fight back. And then they realize, oh, shoot, the scope of this thing is way beyond what we had originally envisioned. And just, like, narratively, it's extremely well constructed up until, like, the third part of the fourth season.
Yeah.
And then it kind of introduces some narrative nonsense to justify everything that has happened to that point as being kind of Eren orchestrated it all with timey-wimey powers,
Yep.
which I didn't like at first, and I still don't like. But it's
He
it's
does the whole "Are you winning, Dad" thing,
Yeah.
where he reveals that he's got that sort of ability.
Because like the Attack Titan's ability is like mental time travel between the various users or something along those lines. So like he can go back and like experience the memories of his dad and also influence them, but also because he's from the future, it always happened that way, and it has to.
Their
it's-
explanation of why he did all that and caused the cataclysmic battle that nearly ended the world is because he's kind of an idiot. That's their explanation.
The explanation for why he did it is because he saw that he did it. He does it and felt like he didn't have a choice to not
the
do it.
inevitability is
Yeah,
the
it's very
point.
circular.
Right. It's
doesn't-
that kind of a paradox.
It's the paradox is kind of secondary to the point Isayama wants to make is this is all inevitable. Nothing we do matters. This is just this cycle of war and violence is always going to happen. It can't be avoided. And anything that seems beautiful, that seems good, that seems like a triumphal moment of humanity is always going to be poisoned by this inevitability of death, of hatred, of war. And human freedom is an illusion. Like, so much of the themes early on are like pursuing freedom, as I said, you know. Eren is particular, like, humanity is concerned with this as Parody sees it, like, to pursue freedom, to live within their walls, to reclaim their island, and later to, like,
Overthrow these
overthrow the
that-
oppressive Marlians and to have freedom to live their lives in peace, and then freedom from the world threat of, you know, the entire world banding together to destroy the Eldians. So, like, there's this kind of outward expansion of the theme of freedom, eventually coming to the realization that
Oh, wait a minute.
freedom was never there.
The
Freedom
reason why
never
they were
really
so hell-bent
existed.
on fighting the Eldians was because they had been oppressed by them and the Titans for thousands of years before they were overthrown and made subservient and all that stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the reason why once you get to the reveal of the outside world that the series lost a lot of people that I've talked to.
I was fine with it until they introduced, like, it kind of made sense to me as like this is where this had to go.
Yeah.
To take it from this
Either
narrow
that, or
world.
they succeed and the story's over and the island's free and they're good to go now.
Right.
You knew it couldn't end that way, though.
No.
It started as this very much man versus nature type of thing, where there's this oppressive, like, non-human force. But plot twist that non-human force is actually human, and humans were the
fighting
real
themselves.
monsters, which is the
Yeah.
oldest twist in sci-fi. But still, it's effective because guess what? Humans can be real monsters sometimes.
So, yeah, I guess the thing that I'm dissatisfied with is that it wants to say that this bloodshed is inevitable. And that it almost has this kind of materialistic determinism to it.
Yeah.
You're basically a slave to the chemical interactions in your brain and the tribalism that's so encoded in human instinct and behavior. And nothing will ever stop the onslaught of war. Nobody's ever going to learn anything.
Many good people die valiant, horrific deaths in the name of sacrificing for
And
freedom.
it
and
doesn't
humanity.
mean anything in the long run.
Like the kind of, it comes to this point where like every decision we make, right, is influenced by everything else that has happened before us. It's almost determined because of the situation we find ourselves in, is what this show is positing, right? It's like Eren happened the way he happened because of everything that happened before him, which only happened the way it happened because of everything that happened before it. And so it's like,
And only happened the way it happened because it happened after it.
right,
Because timey-wimey nonsense.
timey-wimey nonsense. But it's just, it always has been and always will be humans being nasty to each other. Which
Wait, it's just the problem of evil? Always has been. Well, not problem of evil, but
It's not really a problem evil thing. It's
yeah.
it's a materialistic determinism thing.
Yeah. So I think, because that is a very unsatisfactory way to look at the world, it's only natural and inevitable, if you will, that this show would end.
And
in a
I'd like
disappointing
another huge part of me is just sad that the really excellent textbook storytelling just had to get tossed for that point.
Yeah.
And as I said, that's part of the point, is that all of this illusory goodness and kind of thrill in life is just a distraction from what's really going on.
Yeah. The protagonist literally almost ends the world. He becomes
he
the
stops
villain.
being the protagonist halfway at the end of the series, and
I think
suddenly
he stops being the protagonist like as soon as he goes and takes after the Warhammer and just like needlessly kills people.
right. Suddenly, the protagonist in the show is literally everybody else who was the supporting cast to Eren in the first 3 seasons.
Yeah.
You'd have to argue the protagonist switches to Armin and Mikasa.
Yeah.
From-
In some sort of way. Armin is constantly plagued by how useless he is.
How useless he feels he is.
And Mikasa is defined by the power of anime love interest.
And Ackerman,
Yeah.
Right.
She kills people.
which is effectively powered by anime love interest.
Yeah.
Because the lore reason that they give is like the Ackerman family are these kind of almost robotic, genetically modified powerhouses that are compelled to obey orders from a certain person that I forget the exact mechanism, but they find a certain person that they're compelled to obey.
I think within the royal family, I think it was specific to.
Originally, yes.
Originally, and yet
Because they're not Eldians, but.
it wants to show you that Mikasa kind of has that obedience to Eren.
Mm-hmm. But she also actually genuinely, really, she thought she loved him. And the show is sort of ambiguous on that, whether or not she is.
She definitely cares about him. Just how much of that was genetically influenced and determined.
How much
by
of that
her-
is determined by the biological programming?
Yeah.
right?
Circling back to that theme.
Yeah. It's a doozy. Yeah, things just keep escalating.
Yeah. Well, it's particularly in season 4 to the point where it's like, how do you come back from
Well, they
this?
just sort of nonchalantly dropped the reveal that Bertholdt and Reiner were like the two big
I thought that
titans.
was actually kind of funny. It's like,
I'm the armored titan. He's the colossal titan. Like, wait.
what? There are more Titan Transformers? And you're...
Yeah, I thought that was very well done and situated in just like a crazy, chaotic time already. And they're just like, let's get out of here. Drop this massive bomb on you. Pun intended.
Yeah, it was the show is the most fun to watch up until, what would you say, like end of season 2?
It's really good all the way through season 3.
Yeah.
The return to Shiganshina is my favorite arc in the whole thing. But yeah, it's until like halfway through season 4, part 1. It's excellent, and then
the turning point is when Potato Girl gets shot.
Yep.
Yeah.
And because she was like, in like all these grim people who are out there to kill Titans, she was like she was the comedy relief character of the group, really.
To eat.
But she was like the simple pleasures, just having camaraderie, right? She was a catalyst for camaraderie within the group, making these human connections and just being a family as a unit, you know, as a scout unit. I mean, but then like. Once she is killed by a racist little girl, that symbolically is like even the good is fleeting. Good will
even
die.
The people you think
because-
deserve peace don't get it.
Yes, especially people who you think deserve peace don't get it.
And even though Gabi lives to regret what she does,
Yes,
she ends up becoming, getting turned into a Titan in the end anyway.
right. Gabi spends most of season 4 being a proto Eren almost, where she's like she could become the next Eren if things continue a certain way. And Eren is only becoming what he is because there was a whole thing.
Are you winning, Dad?
Are you winning, Dad?
Yeah, I'd say those are the major overarching themes of the show. We kind of skipped over the whole thing with like the Historia reveal and all that, but
Because it ends up not mattering.
yeah, actually though,
Yeah. Like
It feels like a big deal at the time, and it just doesn't matter at all.
the biggest thing Historia does is touch Eren on the head so that he can
have a vision.
have a vision of the future because he gets connected to the founding Titan because she's one of the royal family, and so
Descendants, yeah.
yeah.
And I've not yet come to a conclusion on why she ends up the way she ends up. Like, she just goes off and gets
Marries a
married
random
and
dude.
marries some random dude, totally unnamed. We've never, goes the whole length of the show without knowing anything about him. It's like, what's the point there? Like, she just kind of flees the conflict to live a simple life.
Well,
And
And she still rules over the island.
the thing is, for years the royal family had kept the founding Titan because they were the only ones that could control it by and also like they had this long like curse, pledge, promise thing baked into the founding Titan where they couldn't use the founding Titan because the king had sworn himself to pacifism.
Ah, that's right.
It's a whole thing. And she retreated to have a kid for the purposes of having a kid, so that if they got Eren and they could put the founding Titan back into the royal family and keep that going. I think, as I understand, that was what it was.
Yeah, plot-wise, that's kind of the ostensible reason. But
In
I
effect,
think
she
there's
just ends up sort of living.
There's I think, a broader point. Or at least there could very well be a broader kind of thematic point to her non-involvement. And I haven't come to a conclusion about why that is, but
because the show doesn't really communicate that.
and again, it's kind of the people distracting themselves from what is kind of primal, and they're just like, I'm going to distract myself from the death and chaos and pain and try to live in a way that
Gives me the most comfort.
There's Monkey / Zeke's whole spiel about life simply survives by people reproducing. That's basically
Life
all they were for.
finds a way.
Like, the only reason why we don't go extinct is because we just keep breeding. And that's like the only meaning he finds in life.
Until he's handed a baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I had a fleeting moment of happiness once. Maybe it is all worth it.
Maybe we just have to live for throwing the baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe there is something that actually matters and is worth fighting for.
And then the show's like,
show
nah.
ignores, show ignores that. But
Baseball.
Yeah.
Baseball.
Yep.
Numb yourself with the baseball.
Yep.
I wouldn't get tired of that. He didn't say, I loved that. I enjoyed that. It's like, I wouldn't get tired of that.
Mm-hmm.
It was just such a painful, hopeless kind of, this is all you get. It's the best you can have is distraction.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense that there's, in this context, that there's just wanton violence, deaths of millions caused by certain individuals, and they just sort of are like,
Yeah.
We just play baseball until the next Hitler shows up and tries to blow up the world.
yep.
That's
That's all you
that's
get.
life.
That's all you get.
C'est la vie.
That's this show.
Yep. What it ultimately comes down to, anyway.
Yeah.
There's moments in there where you think you're brought to hope that there might be something more, and then it's all summarily shattered.
Yeah.
Yep. Which is an
There's no
intentional
hope of a
choice.
beautiful
Yeah.
future where all of your friends, sure, these people you've come to like might live happily ever after, but their descendants are certainly going to die in a nuclear apocalypse. You know?
Yeah, someone's gonna drive an airplane into your parody's equivalent of the Twin Towers.
Oh, I forgot they did that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Subtle.
And then someday, some little impoverished kid is going to come across a giant tree in the middle of the forest where the founding titan was buried, implying the whole thing happens again and again.
Mm-hmm.
The cycle begins anew, which is just kind of a depressing
There's
take.
not really any, like, hope is an illusion is what this show is trying to say.
Yeah,
Um,
and we don't like that.
I suppose should we break into the transcendental analysis then while we're kind of sort of going that direction?
Yeah, by negation.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the truth is this isn't how the world is.
We believe
This is
in
how the world
something
would
more
work
than-
if there wasn't something greater to live for.
if
This
God
is a
didn't-
godless world.
Yeah, if there's no God, this is how life is. And I don't know.
This is
the
a show that is-
philosopher, the ancient philosopher in me would like to believe that even without a personal God, like there's still something more you can aspire to than this just hopeless cosmos. But yeah, determinism is just such a frightening prospect, and it doesn't matter if it's true. This is precisely Nietzsche's critique of these kind of people. He's like, even if this is true, you shouldn't want to think about it. You shouldn't. It doesn't matter that you've pierced the reality. Like, you should live as if this isn't true.
Yeah.
That's the only reasonable way to go about life.
Mm-hmm.
You should live believing in something higher than yourself, even if it's an illusion.
Everybody who thinks this way in the show dies.
Everybody in the show dies.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, like, are killed brutally. The
Right.
people who have hope or higher
Or
ideals.
hope for other people.
Yeah.
Or are important enough to the plot that they need to be kept around to defeat Eren and stop this particular impending threat.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Armin, I think, is one of the few who kind of maintains this hope throughout, because he's the one who kind of shows Eren this book about the ocean and like gets this idea in his head, even though future timey-wimey was already in his head. Like, Armin kind of always has this hope about him, and he kind of has to sideline that hope in order to deal with the most proximate world-ending doom.
Mm-hmm.
And so even the one who kind of has this hope the most has to put it on the shelf
In order to just get this job done.
to survive.
Yeah.
Because that's all it is, according to the show. It's just survival. Hope goes on the shelf, and it's nothing more than that. Which is
So-
not the case. It's not
right.
what we believe.
So yeah, even if this is the case, even if that's the reality, you should basically ignore that.
You're better
You
off
should pretend
living,
like you don't know.
You're better off living as if there is something to hope
To
for.
reach for something, to live with Eros in kind of this pagan Nietzschean sense.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a life devoid of love and like greater ends and becoming an excellent human being and like, yeah.
Yeah. Where's the goodness in this show?
Few and far between.
Yeah.
And ultimately irrelevant.
Yeah. Like the show makes it a point to say that, yes, there are very good characters and good moments.
There are
and good,
many well-meaning people.
very well-meaning people who
are
do have
victims.
that hope and
Yeah.
do have those ideals that are
They're
just
victims of
unceremoniously killed.
Yeah.
Victims of circumstance and their hope for the future.
Yeah.
as
It's
the
not
show
precisely
portrays them.
because of their hope. They just, they get victimized by the system.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the point the show is trying to make, is that, like, ultimately, at the end of the day, there's nothing good about this existence. Except for what you take momentary relief from.
Yeah.
You know?
So I guess that's the major takeaway that we're giving for the show is like, good thing this isn't how the world works.
Praise God, this is not how it is.
Yes.
It's not a world I'd want to live in if it
No.
were real.
Indeed.
Christ who has conquered death. That is, like the actual hope in like Easter and the resurrection and all that. Is that this is in fact not how we are destined to live.
Yeah.
Just constantly.
And even in an equally brutal world, a world where Christ lived and died, would change this landscape. Like, it would make it so that there's a hope. There's something to kind of move and guide the human life. And even if you trampled by a nuclear titan, you have something as recompense.
Your life has meaning in that God's plan for each and every individual person's salvation can still be accomplished.
That's what they needed. Eren needed Jesus.
Yeah. Y'all need Jesus. That's, sort of the point in the show. Beauty. Now, very well animated show. Initial storytelling and writing is very, very great.
Except when it's not.
Except when it's not.
It gets through.
I mean, the animation is good throughout.
The animation is phenomenal in certain spots, and it's artistically well done, visually and narratively.
The designs and the characters are all like very. It's got a very striking aesthetic. Like I don't watch a ton of anime, so but it strikes me as different from like what I've seen because there's such harsh like lines.
Yeah,
the shading is very like crosshatchy, and there's like a lot of like dark blacks used in outlines and in the shading and such.
Wasn't that like
especially the wit work on the first 3 seasons before Mappa took it over? It was like, I mean, that's kind of Wit's characteristic thing, but that's why they were chosen to do the project, is because they have like such sharp outlines and thick kind of.
Weren't they like going for a
striking,
specific like sort of German impressionistic art style too, with like these really grotesque faces and expressions? And
There's a lot of Germanic kind of influence. The architecture is very German.
Also, a lot of the last names are very German.
yes, Ackerman, Jaeger, so
Bertolt.
forth. Yeah, Reiner.
Yep.
Rainer.
So it's like this area is very clearly meant to be vaguely European.
And more specifically German because of kind of the Nazi connotation.
Right. The
The
concentration
Eldian,
camps,
the
the
Eldian
nuke
armbands,
people, the whole thing. All the Eldians are blonde-haired, blue-eyed people.
Well, a lot of the Marlians are too.
I meant Marlians. That's my bad. Anyway, point is,
second-class citizens, industrial might leading to conquer other nations.
But also they capture that aesthetic very well.
Yeah.
And also like all the openings are these dramatic themes, and the music is always like very like intense and dramatic and really good. They're very fitting to the action set pieces, which are also very well choreographed. There's some cool fight scenes. It's great.
And the show sort of unravels as a big mystery, right? Like, people trying to get to the bottom
What is a Titan? Why is Eren a Titan? How do they work and why? And then when you learn that, it's like, okay.
There's an outside world. What?
Now that we know how this works now, we just got to watch them punch each other and try and destroy the world until it happens.
The unraveling of the mystery leads to a lot of like intrigue and entertainment as the show unfolds. And then all of a sudden, when you know everything, you're like, oh crap, this sucks.
Well, then crap hits the fan and continues to hit the fan and hit more fans. And then it stops.
We continue to have battles of the flesh mechas.
Yep.
Yes. It becomes Flesh Gundam.
Yeah.
When it used to be very David and Goliath. But like if David was Spider-Man with swords.
Yeah.
With X-Acto knives.
Right.
Unity, what brings it all together?
Nothing
really matters to me.
We got so far, we fought so hard. In the end, it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, that's
ultimately what it
nihilism
came to.
and materialism.
Material determinism.
Material determinism. They're just a real drag.
Which it's a
gear of life.
It's a well-made
executed
show.
well.
And it makes its point very clearly and intentionally. It's like, I see what you're saying here. And I was with you up until you started making that point. Because that's not how I believe in the world works. But also, I'm in it for the long haul now that I've sat through
Hope and
all
inspiring battles against overwhelming odds. Yeah, that's very compelling and inspiring. And that's probably where the show got a lot of its broad appeal. And then you start saying nothing matters.
Upon.
So when you get somebody really invested in something and tell them nothing, it doesn't actually matter.
That's part of the pain of it all. And
Yeah.
that's, again, very intentional.
Have that pulled out from under you.
You don't get to have good things.
No.
We can't have good things. Good things don't exist.
Not really.
Not really, really.
So what's our verdict on the show then? Is it something to recommend to people?
Worth watching.
It is
very worth watching.
Like I wouldn't recommend it like broadly to anybody, but like there's certain people I'm like, this is a good show and a well-made show, and it has an interesting point to make, and it makes it interestingly for the most part. But it's going to not be for everybody.
Yeah, if you can withstand the constant ever presence of death and destruction.
Like if you can make it through the first 4 episodes, that's about the intensity.
The first 4 episodes kind of set the tone
stage
for
very
how the rest of it goes.
Because you see a mom get bitten in half in front of her son's eyes, and it's like, oh, it doesn't get better than this, does it?
And the show says that doesn't matter.
Ultimately,
Eren made it happen.
Yep. He's like, I had to send
it.
A Titan was going to eat Bertolt, so I sent him at my mom instead. Or sent her at my mom instead. It's just like,
except it wasn't me; it was the other. It was this whole timey-wimey thing. His dad was the Attack Titan at the time.
The show basically goes out of its way to say, I know this doesn't make sense. Eren's an idiot. But everything's meaningless, so who cares?
Right. It would have, if it wasn't going to be Eren, it would have been any other idiot that happened to.
Because that's like why I can't really be mad at the show. It's like, well, the show told me what it was doing.
Yep.
It's not like it's stupid because they made mistakes.
It's not like this is a plot hole, even though it is.
It is.
It's a plot hole that's not a plot hole because it's a thematic plot hole that makes the point.
And it's intentionally made a plot hole, yeah.
Doing plot holes on purpose.
It was a very, like, I left, like, when we finished the finale, I was like, it was a very sort of a semi-disappointed, when the credits rolled.
Well, I'm like, that was about the only way you could walk it back at that point. That's the only way
inevitable.
You could end it at that point. They got pushed the extremeness of the apocalypse to the point where there's really only
after
one
a certain
way this
point,
happens.
I'm like, Mikasa's going to kill Eren at the end, isn't she? And
because her whole thing is, no, I can't kill Eren. I love him. There's this human connection that means something to us.
I've always hated you. Like that whole thing.
Except
just like,
only tells her that to make her able to kill him later because timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly stuff. Yeah, because he actually does like her, but also it's not like I like you or anything. It's not like I want you to cut my head off and cry.
Eren the tsundere.
Yeah.
It's not like I want you to cut my head off.
It's not like I crushed 80% of humanity because I want you to kill me or anything, dummy.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. And then he just kicks the shit out of Armin just because.
Just because.
That was that whole scene. It's this show is very
our attitude toward the show is entirely shaped by the back half of the 4th season or final season. Like up until this point, there was a lot more.
Can't not be in if you watch the whole
absolutely.
thing.
But it's like
I know of some people who chose to stop watching the show because they just wanted it to be what it was in the first 3 seasons.
Right. Well, in the first season and a half.
Yeah.
Because when does the dad reveal happen? That's end of season 2 or
end
beginning
of season 2, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's a fundamental tonal shift where it goes from a man versus nature story to a man versus man story.
Yeah. It remains very compelling up until the point where Eren decides he's going to end the world now.
And even then, it tells the exact story they set out to tell in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
That's
it wasn't like he didn't know exactly where it was going from the very start. He wasn't making this up as he went.
Right.
In broad strokes, the way this narrative was set up from the beginning is how it went.
There was a grand plan, and that was intentional.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's true to the artist's vision, which I respect that on some level. It's like you commit to the bit, I guess. It's just the bit didn't vibe with me at the end. You know?
The bit ought not vibe with a Christian.
Yes.
It ought not vibe with anyone, honestly.
If it vibes with you,
vibe with a well-integrated human being who doesn't have wounds about what they consider, the value of life to be.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm. Because in real life, there are people with this sort of attitude who have killed a lot of people and caused a lot of suffering. And the reason why it's all the more tragic in the real world is because, in fact, people's lives do matter.
Mm-hmm.
Every death is a tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
So, bear that in mind, I suppose.
But, yeah.
I guess we have anything else for people? Look at that. We managed to tackle this in an average amount of time for this podcast. This isn't even going to be one of our longest episodes.
It's because we wrote down the synopsis going into
We're
it. We could have
learning.
spun our wheels about a dozen different side plots. There was the human insurrection in the middle there where they had human versus human ODM gear with the guns and stuff.
Yeah.
That kind of happened.
There's lots of little subplots and
Lots of
different characters in the main cast we could have talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And they have varying degrees of,
Thematic
merit. Levi's probably the biggest character we didn't really talk about.
Erwin also rather important.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically because of his relationship to Levi and his
I think
inspiration
even on
to
his
Levi.
own right,
Sure.
as kind of a model of a leader of humanity
Mm-hmm.
who ultimately pays the price. And one of those characters that is a genitor of hope that gets trampled by, the greater struggle.
And Levi's like, well, which hopeful person do I save? Do I save the kid or the old man? Right? He saves Armin by turning him into Titan and feeding him Bertolt.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway. So yeah, there was a couple other characters there's kind of a bit in the middle where it's ultimately, if you look at the thing in context, it felt like the middle spun its wheels a little bit. But also, they got there in ostensibly 4 seasons.
Yeah. Very disjointed.
The final season, I don't know how.
Parts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
There were multiple times where
1, 2,
they would
3,
announce
movie 1,
a new
movie
part
2.
of the final season, and we would be like, I don't believe you.
They released the final movie, and it's like, This is like for real,
Guys,
right?
we're telling you, this is the end.
Really?
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll believe it when I see
You
it.
told me the end. It was the end.
Yeah,
last
that was the other
few
thing. We get
times.
to the end of it, it's like, oh, so yeah, it's
So
over.
really, yeah, this
That's the definitive end.
It's so over.
It's so over.
this podcast should be over.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. You can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can email us with requests and whatever at platingpapers@gmail.com. Yeah, I guess we'll talk to you guys in the next episode. See you.
Bye.